Have you ever felt like your brain is just constantly being pulled in a million different directions? That feeling, just perpetually distracted, but somehow you're still expected to produce this really high quality, impactful work.
Oh, absolutely. It's the constant pings from your phone, right?
Yeah, and the endless stream of emails, the pressure of maybe an open office plan, and just that siren song of every single notification demanding a little piece of your attention.
It's become so pervasive in our modern world, hasn't it? That sense of being always busy, but maybe not truly productive in a deep, meaningful way.
You've totally hit on why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking at a book that offers, well, a really powerful counter-narrative, almost like a rebellion against all that distraction.
Which book is that?
It's Cal Newport's Deep Work, Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. And honestly, this book isn't just another productivity manual.
No, it's much more fundamental.
Exactly. It argues that the ability to do what he calls deep work isn't just, helpful. It's quickly becoming the superpower of the 21st century, especially in this globally competitive, information-heavy economy we're all in.
And Cal Newport, I think, is really uniquely positioned to make this argument. He's a theoretical computer scientist, tenured professor at MIT.
Right? Think about that field.
Yeah, his actual job demands an incredibly high level of sustained focus, intellectual rigor. He lives and breathes the kind of concentration he's talking about, dealing with complex algorithms, cutting-edge research. It's not just theory for him.
It's his daily reality. And it's not his first time exploring this area either, is it?
Not at all. If you've read his earlier stuff like So Good They Can't Ignore You or maybe How to Be a High School Superstar, even the student guides.
Yeah, like how to become a straight-A student.
Exactly. There's this consistent thread running through all his work. He's fascinated by how he learns skills, how he becomes genuinely productive, how he achieve mastery through focus.
Deep work really feels like a synthesis of those ideas, but framed as this actionable strategy for professional success that feels incredibly relevant right now.
It does. And the book itself, it's structured really clearly. A two-part mission, basically, which he lays out right at the start.
Okay, what's the first part?
First, he wants to convince you, the reader, of what he calls the deep work hypothesis.
The hypothesis being?
Well, it has three key parts. That deep work is incredibly valuable today, that it's surprisingly rare in practice, and maybe the most interesting part, that it's intrinsically meaningful, deeply satisfying for us as humans.
Okay, valuable, rare, and meaningful. Makes sense.
And once he's made that case, and he does it pretty convincingly,
Yeah, he does.
the second part of the book switches gears completely. It becomes very practical. It gives you concrete, actionable strategies, rules, essentially to help you actually integrate this into your professional life.
So it's about training your brain, transforming your work habits, making deep work not just something you aspire to, but a real central part of your daily routine.
Exactly. It's an invitation to cultivate this skill that, like you said, is becoming rarer. And because of that, way more valuable. It's about building a professional life that leads to not just output, but real satisfaction and impact.
So that's our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to really explore Cal Newport's arguments, follow the book's structure, dive into part 1 and part 2, all the rules he lays out.
Pulling out the key concepts.
Yeah, dissecting the examples he uses. He has some great ones. And most importantly for you listening, discussing actionable strategies you can actually apply in your own life to cultivate this superpower.
And we should probably touch on some of the counter-arguments too, right? How he addresses those so you get the full picture.
Definitely. Okay. Let's dive in. Where should we start? Part 1, the definitions.
Yeah, I think those foundational definitions are absolutely key. Understanding what he means by deep work versus shallow work is crucial for everything else.
Okay, so lay it out for us. What is deep work according to Newport?
So deep work, at its core, refers to professional activities you do in a state of completely distraction-free concentration. But here's the critical part. These activities push your cognitive capabilities right to their limit.
Ah, so it's like intellectual heavy lifting.
Precisely. It's the kind of effort that creates genuinely new value, something that didn't exist before. It improves your skills in a way that really sets you apart, and it's inherently hard for other people to replicate or automate. Intense, focused, demanding effort.
So it's not just about clocking hours, it's about the intensity and the cognitive stretch. Creating something novel or achieving real mastery, that's where the breakthroughs happen.
Exactly. And then, in stark contrast, you've got shallow work.
The other side of the coin.
Right. This covers the non-cognitively demanding stuff, often logistical tasks. And crucially, these are things you can often do while distracted.
Like checking email while half listening to a call.
Pretty much. Or responding to routine emails, setting up meetings, filling out simple reports, maybe mindlessly scrolling social media feeds for work research. These tasks don't typically create much new value, and they're pretty easy for others to replicate or delegate.
They might feel necessary, keep the wheels turning, but they don't fundamentally move the needle on big projects or build your core expertise.
That's the distinction. So with those definitions clear, part 1 of the book is all about convincing us of the sheer value of prioritizing deep work. Chapter 1, Deep Work is Valuable, kicks off with some really powerful examples.
Yeah, the Carl Jung one always sticks with me, the Bullingen Tower.
Ah, yes, Bullingen Tower. It's such a vivid illustration of how far true masters will go to cultivate deep thought. Picture this. It's 1922. Carl Jung, already a giant in psychology, just published Psychological Types, challenged Freud fundamentally.
He's at a critical point in his career.
Exactly. He needs to solidify his own school of thought. Analytical psychology. It's groundbreaking work. And what does he do? Despite apparently not being able to afford a vacation, he invests huge amounts of time, energy, money.
To literally build a stone tower.
Yeah.
In the woods. By hand, initially.
Right. And it wasn't just a retreat, was it? Mason Curry's work on creative rituals makes it clear Jung built it specifically to foster deep, uninterrupted thought.
He even reduced his clinical work to go there, didn't he? He saw it as essential for his goal of changing the world of psychology.
That's the profound insight. Even a pioneering mind like Jung knew that real breakthroughs needed a dedicated, insulated space for deep focus. It wasn't a luxury. For him, it was a necessity.
It really shows that deep work isn't just some modern productivity hack. It's a timeless principle used by people who genuinely transform their fields.
A testament to deliberate, isolated thought.
But Jung is history, right? Newport quickly brings this right into the modern day with a really inspiring story, Jason Ben.
Oh, Ben's story is amazing. Such a stark contrast, but equally powerful. He went from being a financial consultant, making maybe $40,000 a year.
And admitting he spent most of his day just surfing the web, like 98% of it.
Yeah. To becoming this highly sought-after developer in San Francisco, earning over $100,000 a year. And the key was how he prepared for Dev Boot Camp, that intense coding school.
How do you do it?
He cultivated this almost monastic habit of deep work before he even started the boot camp. He'd get to his office super early, carve out 4 to 7 hours of pure focused programming. No email, no web surfing, just code.
He even lived right across the street from the office, didn't he? To cut out the commute friction.
He did. It shows that deep work isn't just powerful, it's a learnable superpower. Anyone can cultivate it. His transformation proves it can radically change your career trajectory. It sort of democratizes elite performance.
And then there's Adam Grant, the Wharton professor. He's like the embodiment of elite production through deep work.
Absolutely. Youngest full professor at Wharton, producing at an insane rate. Like 7 articles in major journals in just 1 year, 2012. That's almost unheard of.
Plus 5 more the next year, and his bestseller, Give and Take. How?
His method, batching. He batches the hard intellectual work into long, uninterrupted stretches, teaches intensely in the fall, immerses himself in that. Then spring and summer, pure research and writing, minimal distraction.
So it's not about juggling everything all the time. It's about singular focus during dedicated blocks. These top professors, they approach productivity itself like a scientific problem to solve.
They engineer their lives for depth. And beyond these individual stories, Newport argues deep work is an urgent economic imperative now.
Right, because of shifts in the economy.
Yeah, he highlights a few trends. First, the need to master complex tools. In today's world, the people who can really skillfully work with complicated tech are the ones who thrive.
Like Nate Silver at 538.
Exactly. He doesn't just use data. He produces profound insights from it, using complex statistical systems like Stata. It's not just data entry. It's the sophisticated ability to extract real value using these powerful tools. That requires deep focus.
And that connects to his second point, the rise of superstars.
Yeah, based on that old Sherwin-Rosen paper about winner-take-all markets. Yeah. The idea is, when talent isn't perfectly substitutable like 10 okay singers don't equal one amazing one, consumers pick the very best.
And technology has amplified that.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
High-speed networks, collaboration tools, they've broadened this effect way beyond movie stars. Now, a small company anywhere can find the best programmer, designer, consultant globally.
He says David Heinemeier Hansson, the creator of Ruby on Rails, is an example, right? Working remotely from multiple locations for Basecamp.
Precisely. His highly valuable, hard-to-replicate deep work can be done anywhere. His skills serve a global market, making him incredibly valuable regardless of location. He's a superstar coder.
So the takeaway is the best are capturing more of the rewards. You need to be in that elite group.
Which makes deep work crucial. And the third imperative is the capital versus labor thing, the great restructuring.
Where rewards flow more to owners of capital, the machines, the software.
Right. But for individuals, for labor, the ability to produce innovative, hard-to-replicate work through deep effort becomes your most critical asset. Remember the Instagram example. Sold for $1 billion with only 13 employees.
Wow. Stark example of rewards flowing to the owners of the system.
So deep work is the counter strategy. It's how you remain exceptionally valuable when the economy might otherwise favor capital. How you avoid being just a replaceable cog.
Okay, that makes a strong case for value. But what about the counterexamples? The people who seem to succeed without deep work. Newport tackles this with the Jack Dorsey anomaly.
Ah, yes, Dorsey. Co-founder of Twitter and Square, multi-billionaire, famously fragmented schedule, runs his day through meetings, serendipitous availability, even works at stand-up tables so people can just walk up.
He seems like the antithesis of deep work. Doesn't that undermine the whole argument?
It's a great question, and Newport addresses it directly. He acknowledges Dorsey's style is far from deep. His attention is perpetually fractured. Yet, he's incredibly valuable.
So what's the explanation?
The crucial distinction Newport makes is that Dorsey's approach is specific to his very unique role as a CEO, especially of multiple demanding companies.
Okay.
A CEO like Dorsey functions less as a deep problem solver and more as what Newport calls a hard-to-automate decision engine. Their value is in rapidly synthesizing inputs, emails, meetings, quick chats, and making fast, high-stakes decisions based on experience and instinct.
So asking Dorsey to sit quietly for 4 hours on one problem would actually be inefficient.
Exactly. It'd be a waste of his specific talent. It's better to hire experts for the deep thinking, have them present distilled solutions, and let the CEO make the high-leverage, rapid decision. The CEO is a bottleneck, but a valuable one.
So Dorsey is the exception, not the rule.
Precisely. The niches where distraction is actually beneficial are incredibly rare. For almost everyone else in knowledge work, prioritizing depth is hugely beneficial, almost essential, unless you have strong evidence otherwise.
He mentions that Harvard study, right, with the consultants.
Yeah, the Boston Consulting Group study.
Yeah.
Consultants who thought they needed constant connectivity were forced to disconnect more. And what happened?
Their performance actually improved, and clients were happier.
Right. It totally challenges the assumption that always on is always better. Often, it's a detriment to real output.
That's so counterintuitive but powerful. It really reinforces that for most of us, deep work is key, which leads right into chapter 2. If it's so valuable, why is deep work is rare?
Yeah, this chapter unpacks that paradox.
Yeah.
And the main culprit, the overwhelming ubiquity of distraction. It's everywhere.
And network tools.
Email, Slack, Teams, SMS, social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, you name it. Plus smartphones, network computers.
Yeah.
It's relentless. Our attention is fragmented into tiny slivers.
He cites that McKinsey study. What was it? 60% of the work week on electronic communication and searching.
Over 60%. And nearly 30% of the entire week just on email alone.
Yeah.
Think about that cognitive drain.
It's staggering. And it's not just digital tools, is it? Our physical spaces contribute too, like open offices.
Definitely. Companies like Facebook, Square, they embraced massive open plans, actively promoting serendipity over concentration. Dorsey himself said they want people walking by each other, teaching new things.
But the cost is deep focus.
Often, yes. And even traditional places like the New York Times push employees to be active on Twitter. Remember the backlash when Jonathan Franzen criticized Twitter? It shows how ingrained this expectation of constant online presence is.
So we're surrounded by forces actively undermining deep work, even though it's so valuable. Why do we go along with it? Newport has a few reasons. The metric black hole is a big one.
The metric black hole. Brilliant concept. It's just so hard to quantify the negative impact of distraction on the bottom line.
Like you can't easily measure the cost of not doing deep work.
Exactly. Tom Cochran at Atlantic Media tried. He calculated they spent over $1 million a year just processing email, like 95 cents per message in labor.
Wow.
But even then, it was hard to measure the value produced by all that emailing, or crucially, the lost value from the deep work that didn't happen because people were emailing.
Since the cost isn't easily measured, businesses often don't feel an urgent need to change.
The pain isn't visible on a spreadsheet, so there's no clear disincentive. And then there's the principle of least resistance.
Yeah, it's just easier, isn't it? Responding to pings, emails, notifications feels easier than settling down for focused, challenging work.
Running your day from your inbox feels productive, even if it's not deep.
Much simpler than implementing something systematic like getting things done with its complex flowcharts. And that BCG study, again, forcing disconnection, improved enjoyment, communication, and quality. It suggests our default isn't necessarily the best path.
And then there's busyness as a proxy for productivity. Appearing busy becomes the measure of worth, especially in knowledge work, where output can be ambiguous. Like Marissa Mayer at Yahoo, banning remote work because server logs showed people weren't logged in enough. The message was, visible busyness equals productivity.
That's a dangerous assumption.
It really is. And it thrives where there's job ambiguity and unclear metrics. Finally, he talks about the cult of the internet, or technoboly.
The idea that anything internet-related must be good and necessary.
Pretty much an unquestioned belief. The example of the refrigerated truck with a "like us on Facebook" sticker is perfect. Why does a logistics truck need Facebook likes? It shows the pervasive pressure.
And deep work, with its focus on quality and craftsmanship, feels old-fashioned in comparison.
Exactly. It struggles against the shiny thrum of tweets, likes, tagged photos. We adopt tools just because they exist, not because they offer substantial, proven benefits for our core work.
But here's the twist, right? Newport says this rarity is actually good news for individuals.
It absolutely is. If depth becomes increasingly rare, it also becomes increasingly valuable. Anyone willing to cultivate it has a huge advantage.
It's a clear path to becoming indispensable. So there's the pragmatic economic argument. But Chapter 3 goes deeper, arguing deep work is meaningful. This shifts from career value to human fulfillment.
Right. The core idea here is that a deep life isn't just lucrative. It's fundamentally a life well lived. He builds this using 3 lenses: neurological, psychological, and philosophical.
Okay, let's start with the neurological side. He uses Winifred Gallagher's book, Wrapped.
Yes, Gallagher's experience during her cancer treatment is powerful. Facing a severe diagnosis, exhausting treatment, she realized she could still choose where to focus her attention.
Instead of fear and pain?
She deliberately focused on positive things: movies, walks, her evening martini. And remarkably, she found her life, even then, surprisingly pleasant and meaningful. It highlighted Barbara Fredrickson's research too. What you focus on after a negative event shapes your resilience and well-being. Your attention shapes your reality.
And there was that brain study too,
Yeah.
with elderly subjects.
Laura Kirstensen's fMRI study. It showed older people's amygdalas, the emotion center, reacted mainly to positive images, unlike younger people who reacted to both. The hypothesis was they literally rewired their brains to ignore negative stimuli.
Wow. So they were happier because they'd mastered their attention.
That's the implication. And for us, spending more time in deep focus naturally leverages the brain's machinery for meaning and satisfaction. As Gallagher said, "I'll live the focused life because it's the best kind there is."
A neurological case for depth being inherently good for us. What about the psychological argument that connects to flow, right?
Exactly. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow. Most people know that feeling of being completely immersed in a challenging task, losing track of time.
Totally absorbed.
Csikszentmihalyi's research shows we're at our best, experiencing profound enjoyment when deeply immersed in something that pushes our skills. It's inherently rewarding, regardless of the content of the task. While Gallagher focused on what you attend to, Csikszentmihalyi shows the act of deep concentration itself is satisfying. Our minds crave that engagement.
So the process itself is rewarding, not just the outcome. And the philosophical argument, that links deep work to craftsmanship.
Yeah, drawing on philosophers Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Kelly. They argue craftsmanship offers a key to finding meaning, even sacredness, in a secular world. Think of a master woodworker, intimately connected to the material, extracting artistry.
That palpable satisfaction of mastery.
It gives a glimpse of something deeply valuable. And Newport stresses this isn't just for manual trades. It applies equally to cognitive work.
Like coding.
He quotes Santiago Gonzalez calling beautiful code like a poem. And the pragmatic programmer urges coders to be like medieval quarry workers. We who cut mere stones must always be envisioning cathedrals.
Wow. Focusing on the craft within the larger vision.
So any pursuit demanding high skill and focus, physical or mental, can generate that profound sense of meaning.
It all leads to his idea of Homo sapiens depensus. What's that about?
It's his conclusion for part 1. Neurologically, psychologically, philosophically, we're built to thrive in depth. Embracing deep work isn't just for productivity. It's fulfilling a fundamental human need to create, engage fully, experience life meaningfully.
As he says, a deep life is a good life any way you look at it. Depth leads to fulfillment.
Exactly.
Okay, so part one makes a really strong case for the why. The value, rarity, meaning. Part two then shifts to the how, the rules. This is where it gets super practical.
Right. Actionable strategies to make deep work central to your life. Rule #1 is work deeply. And he kicks it off with this cool, almost utopian concept, the eudaimonia machine.
Right, the architect's design for a building purely for deep work.
Yeah, David Duane's concept, a building for deep human flourishing. Imagine a long, thin building with 5 rooms in sequence: gallery, salon, library, office, chamber.
And the key is no shared hallway, right? You have to go through each room to get deeper.
Exactly. It forces you progressively deeper into concentration, from inspiration to collaboration to research to solo work to ultimate solitude in the chamber.
It's a brilliant metaphor, even if it's just a plan. It shows the ideal environment requires deliberate design for depth.
It highlights how important environment is, but since most of us don't have one, we need to architect our own internal eudaimonia machines. Newport stresses that just trying to fit deep work in whenever, ad hoc, doesn't work.
You need a system, a philosophy.
Yes, a tailored depth philosophy.
Yeah.
He outlines 4 main types. First, the most extreme, the monastic philosophy.
Like Donald Knuth, the computer scientist.
The ultimate example. No email since 1990, mail processed quarterly by an assistant. He radically eliminates shallow obligations to maximize deep work time for his huge projects.
That's intense. Probably only fits a few people with really clear, solitary goals.
Definitely. Then there's the bimodal philosophy, more flexible.
How does that work?
You dedicate specific extended periods, days, weeks, maybe months, purely to deep work. Then other distinct periods are for everything else, the shallow stuff.
Like Bill Gates' Think Weeks.
Exactly. Retreating to a cabin just to think and read. Or J.K. Rowling checking into a fancy hotel to finish Harry Potter. These are often grand gestures.
Grand gestures. What's the point of those?
They dramatically signal the importance of the work to yourself. Increase the stakes, reduce procrastination. They make the deep work feel sacred.
Okay, makes sense. What if you can't just disappear for weeks?
Then maybe the rhythmic philosophy is a better fit. This is about building a regular habit.
Like a daily ritual.
Yeah, consistent, daily chunks of deep work. Jerry Seinfeld's famous "don't break the chain" method for writing jokes is a classic example. Mark an X on the calendar every day you do the work.
Good for maintaining momentum, especially on long projects or when your job doesn't allow big blocks away.
Exactly. It makes deep work a non-negotiable part of the routine, like exercise.
And the last one, the journalistic philosophy. Sounds tricky.
It's the hardest, especially for beginners. It means fitting deep work into any spare moment you find, rapidly switching between shallow and deep modes.
Like Walter Isaacson writing huge biographies in short bursts while running Time magazine.
Right. But that requires immense confidence, discipline, and practice. You need to be able to dive deep instantly. Newport warns novices against it. It can burn you out quickly. Isaacson could do it because he was already a master of focus.
So choose a philosophy that fits. What else? He talks about practices within those philosophies, like ritualizing deep work.
Yes, establishing strict routines for your deep work sessions. A personalized launch sequence for your brain to minimize friction and ease the transition into focus.
Like Robert Caro, the biographer, with his specific office setup and clothes. Or Darwin's fixed daily schedule.
Exactly. Newport's quote is great. Great creative minds think like artists, but work like accountants. Rituals make accessing deep focus reliable and repeatable, not dependent on inspiration.
Build the habit. And he also comes back to make grand gestures.
Reinforcing that idea. Using radical changes in environment or significant investments of time or money to signal the work's importance. Rawlings' expensive hotel suite, Gates' cabin.
It's a psychological boost. Manufacturing urgency.
Precisely. And then there's a really controversial one under this rule. Don't collaborate on deep work ideas.
Whoa. That goes against everything we hear about teamwork and brainstorming, right? Open offices, serendipity.
It does challenge that prevalent myth. Newport argues that while collaboration is good for brainstorming or feedback, the real breakthroughs, the hard insights, the complex problem solving, that happens in deep, isolated, uninterrupted work.
He mentions the MIT professors in the Stata Center.
Yeah, the building was designed for collaboration, open spaces. But many professors insisted on soundproofed offices. They knew true deep research needed insulation, not constant interaction.
So deep individual effort creates the core ideas and collaboration refines them later.
That's the argument. The bulk of innovation comes from focused solitude. Collaboration polishes it.
Interesting distinction. focus isn't just what you do, but the environment you create, which leads nicely into rule #2, embrace boredom. That sounds unpleasant.
Huh? Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive. We're wired to avoid boredom. But Newport argues the problem is constantly switching between high stimuli, low value stuff like scrolling feeds, and low stimuli, high value, deep work.
What does that constant switching do?
It trains your brain to crave novelty. It weakens your attention muscles, making it harder and harder to sustain focus when you actually need it. Your brain literally gets addicted to distraction.
Okay, so how do we fix that? Not just a digital detox now and then.
No, it's about fundamentally rewiring your brain. The core strategy is revolutionary. Schedule internet use.
Schedule it. How does that work?
Instead of taking breaks from distraction, you take breaks from focus. You schedule specific blocks when you'll use the internet. Outside those blocks, you avoid it entirely.
What if something comes up?
Jot it down on a notepad. Address it during your next scheduled internet block. This drastically reduces the number of times you give in to distraction, letting your attention muscles strengthen. Even just resisting checking your phone while waiting in line becomes training.
Building that mental muscle. That sounds tough, but makes sense. What else under embracing boredom? Productive meditation.
Yeah, using periods of physical activity that don't need much thought, walking, commuting, showering, chores, to concentrate deeply on a single specific problem.
Like a walking think tank. Teddy Roosevelt did this.
Apparently, yes. Leveraged physical activity for intense thought. It strengthens distraction resistance. But you have to watch out for distractions, unrelated thoughts, and looping, just rehashing what you already know.
Gently redirect back to the problem. Mental reps.
Exactly. And those extreme strategy here. Memorize a deck of cards.
Seriously, like a memory champion.
It sounds wild, but it works. Newport mentions Daniel Kiloff, a memory champ with ADHD, who improved his concentration massively by learning this.
How does memorizing cards help focus?
It's not rote memorization. Memory athletes use vivid visual scenes. Assign a scene to each card, place them mentally in a memory callus, a familiar location. This leverages the brain's visual memory and, incidentally, powerfully strengthens general concentration. It's like athletic training for your attention muscles.
Fascinating. It really shows building focus is an internal discipline, not just managing external stuff. Which brings us perfectly to rule #3, quit social media. Wow, that's a bold one.
It is provocative, cuts right against the grain. Newport argues we fall into the any benefit trap with these tools.
Meaning we adopt them if they offer any tiny benefit, ignoring the downsides.
Exactly. We see some good, so we assume it's necessary, without weighing the significant negative impacts on focus and time. Quick to embrace, slow to question.
So what's the alternative? He proposes the craftsman approach to tool selection.
Right, a much higher bar. First, identify your core factors for success and happiness, your true professional and personal goals. Then, adopt a tool only if its positive impacts on those core goals substantially outweigh the negatives.
A real cost-benefit analysis for your attention. Treating time like a craftsman treats valuable material.
Precisely. And related to that, apply the 80-20 rule, the law of the vital few, to your online habits.
How does that work with social media?
Identify the 2-3 key activities that drive 80% of your results towards your main goals. Take Michael Lewis, the author, his goal. Amazing narrative stories, his key activities. Deep research, careful writing.
Does Twitter help with those core activities?
Very little, if at all. For him, Newport argues, its distractions are a zero-sum game against his high-impact deep work. Even for writers needing marketing, is lightweight Twitter interaction really one of the top 2-3 highest leverage activities for selling books? Probably not.
So time spent on low-impact, any-benefit activities directly steals from high-impact deep work.
That's the core insight. It challenges the idea that everyone needs to be everywhere online.
And he has that radical experiment, the 30-day social media ban, the pacting party for your digital life.
It's a bold intervention, yeah. Stop using all non-essential social media for 30 days. Cold turkey. No announcements, no deactivating accounts. Just stop.
What's the point? To face the FOMO.
Exactly. To replace the fear of missing out with reality. Most people find after 30 days, these services weren't crucial. Life went on fine, few people noticed they were gone. It reveals them often as lightweight whimsies designed to capture attention and data, not vital tools.
A reality check on their actual importance versus their addictive pull. And finally, under this rule, his advice for downtime. Don't use the internet to entertain yourself.
This is huge. extending deep work principles to leisure. He references Arnold Bennett back in the 19th century, noticing people wasting their 16 free hours just passively consuming stuff.
And today, our leisure is often just a blur of distracted clicks.
Mindless scrolling, binge watching, Newport advocates structuring leisure with high-quality, pre-planned activities, engaging deeply with a book, vigorous exercise demanding hobbies, real face-to-face time.
To allow genuine mental recovery, not just more fragmented attention outside work.
Exactly. Protect your cognitive well-being 24/7.
It's a whole life approach to focus.
Okay, rule #4. Drain the shallows. Sounds like getting rid of all that shallow work we defined earlier. That's the goal. Taming its footprint. Newport argues shallow work, while seemingly necessary, is often less vital than it appears. He points to Jason Fried at 37 Signals again.
It's the 4-day work week.
And month-long sabbaticals. They found reducing shallow work actually made the company more successful and innovative by creating space for deep work. The goal isn't elimination, but significant reduction.
So how do we do that? First step, quantify the depth of every activity.
Yeah, asking that key question for every task. How long would it take to train a smart recent college grad with no specialized training to do this?
If it's months, it's shallow. If it's years, it's deep.
Right. It gives you an objective metric. It can be. But it forces a crucial conversation about expectations. Propose a percentage of your time, say 10–20%, for shallow work. If the boss says, no, it's all shallow work, unless you're entry level, well, that tells you something vital about the job's potential for deep work.
Helps you assess if the role aligns with developing valuable skills. What about fixed schedule productivity?
Newport does this himself. Fix your end time, say 5 p.m. sharp, no exceptions. They work backward to figure out how to get everything essential done within those hours.
Ruthless prioritizing, saying no, being super efficient.
Exactly. It forces a scarcity mindset with your time. You might realize your boss doesn't actually expect instant replies after hours. It powerfully pushes you towards depth and efficiency.
And the last set of strategies, become hard to reach. This is about controlling the inputs.
Yes, building filters, like sender filters. He mentions Antonio, the style blogger, making people check boxes, make promises before they can even send a message.
Raising the bar for contacting you filters out low-value stuff.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Email is too frictionless sometimes.
Totally. And when you do reply, the advice is do more work when you send or reply to emails. Yeah. Front-load the effort.
Instead of endless back and forth.
Right. Provide all necessary info, suggest specific times, give full context up front. More effort initially, but saves huge amounts of time and attention overall by preventing those long, distracting email chains.
And the most extreme tactic, don't respond.
This is advanced,
Yeah.
but many highly productive people do it. If an email isn't critical or someone else can handle it, just don't reply. Bill Gates had an assistant filter his emails. He only saw the vital stuff.
It's about letting small bad things happen, a minor mismessage to free up energy for the big, important things.
Precisely. Rejecting the implicit expectation that every message deserves a response. Choosing what to ignore deliberately.
Wow. Okay, that's a really comprehensive and frankly challenging set of rules, but they build logically on why deep work matters so much.
Absolutely. And that really brings us to the end of this deep dive. What we've seen is that deep work is incredibly valuable, increasingly rare, and profoundly meaningful. It's about crafting a focused, impactful life, not just being busy.
We've covered the rules. Work deeply. Choose a philosophy. Ritualize. Use grand gestures. Embrace boredom. Schedule internet. Use productive meditation. Train memory. Quit social media. Craftsman approach. 80-20 rule. 30-day ban. Structured leisure. And drain the shallows. Quantify depth, budget, time, fixed schedule, become hard to reach.
And adopting these principles isn't just about career success. Newport himself talks about how it allows him to fully disconnect, be present with family, read widely, all while being highly productive. It replaces that background hum of anxiety with calm and purpose.
So here's a final thought for you to consider, maybe as you look at your own schedule. If the most successful, most impactful people throughout history consistently relied on deep work for their breakthroughs, what's the real cost of letting constant distraction dominate your potential? What kind of metaphorical bowling tower, that dedicated space or time for deep thought, will you build in your life? And what incredible work might come out of it? Something to think about.